All of the recordings are on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Oh,
So
okay.
I'll send you the links again, but they're like invitation only on YouTube until I finish the class, and then I'll make them public if I
Oh, okay.
sometimes I like to go through them, fix them, make them look a little better first. But if I don't have time, I may just send them out the way they are. So,
Okay.
but yeah, until then, they're just for people in the class to access.
Okay. All right. Never mind then.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, here's part of my new feature this week in prophecy. Lots of stuff going on, and hopefully this first category is that there is continuing and increasing persecution against Christians in the world. Now, this may be
Uh-oh,
not
somebody
this
did.
week, may not be this week because did we meet last week or did we skip last week? Yeah, we skipped
Yeah.
last week. Yeah. So this
David's
is
here.
probably from soon around that time. Let's see if this works. It's a video.
Oh, David's here. And
This
somebody else.
is Pakistani people tearing down Christian churches because of what they believe to be blasphemy against Islam. So this is video of them tearing churches down and burning them. It's about a minute long. Yeah, pretty bad. This is happening all over the Asian continent. But basically, if somebody makes a comment that Muhammad was not the prophet of God, or that pause it. There you go. Yeah, it was not the prophet of God, or that there's something wrong with the Quran, and then they get worked up, then this is what ends up happening is these mass protests against Christianity, and then sometimes there are people killed, sometimes it's just destruction of property, just depends. But that's kind of one of the stories. There's another one about the government refusing to allow a husband and wife to participate in foster care simply because of their biblical views, which is very odd. Usually that doesn't happen. But this may be Canada. This headline, it's from a news source I go to, and I didn't actually go to the source, the main source this time. This is like a headline that a news group does. I think this was Canada, but Canada is getting increasingly, um, what's the word, segregationist. They don't want any Christianity represented or paid for in any public way, sort of thing.
But I
Um,
think it's coming to America too, because my sister was a foster parent, and after she adopted her baby, she started hearing rumors of this. So I think it's coming here real quick.
yeah. Well, for instance, I wanted to go on to CSUMB's campus to do Bible studies, maybe create a club, because if you can create a club on the college campus, then you get access to rooms and advertising rights and tabling rights at events that you wouldn't get unless you were a club on campus. But the problem is, if you want to become a club on campus, you have to sign inclusionary sort of rules that
What did I do?
people insist upon, and they tend to be unbiblical. So let me see. Somebody just tried to enter. There it is. Oh, it's Nancy.
But
Hi,
I
Nancy.
but I thought that in the public school system, if you allow Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, any other kind of club, that Christians legally have the right to have a club as well.
Yes, here's what they did. That is true. In fact, I found out some interesting news from a professor, Christian professor, about those things. But what they did at CSUMB is they made the comment that no outside sources can go on to campus to start a club. So I can't go on campus and say I'm going to start a club. It has to be started by students. And then they have to have a minimum number of students because they have to form with like a board. So a treasurer, a secretary, and a president. That's usually the 3-person board, plus 2 attendees. So I think it's 5 minimum. And they have to do it all themselves.
So can you
I can no
show up
longer go on and do
for what is it? meet you at the poll day and see if people are meeting around the poll to pray and just
Yeah.
kind of drop hints.
Well, they can't. It was an interesting lawsuit came about, but basically what it said is schools can no longer do things like limiting free speech or any kind of speech, religious speech, to any areas on campus. It used to be that you had to go to the free speech area and then you could go out and say anything you wanted. But the federal government and the Supreme Court came in and said, no, if it's a publicly paid for school, everywhere is a free speech area because it's a guaranteed right. So it's just a big argument. But what they can do, though, is limit who can access the students. It's really no different than putting up a gate to get onto campus. It is public, but you have to go through the process to get in, like a gate, similar to that concept. So yeah, it's just barriers they've put into for any outside people coming in to try and start a group, basically. And that's kind of what they're doing. You know, when it's government money, they can attach things to it, like standards that they expect and that type of thing. Choose. So a few more about the economy. A lot of branches, banks, even the World Economic Forum, they're moving very, very quickly toward digital currency. They want to eliminate cash, and there are banks all over the world who are saying we're not going to stockpile cash, we're not going to take cash anymore. Everything must be digital, and by digital I mean it could mean credit card. But it's this movement toward total digital currency, so computer-based currency. I think a lot of times when I hear it, I think of futuristic as science fiction shows, Star Trek type thing, where they talk about buying what they always use the term credits. It cost me 350 credits. You know, it's kind of that movement. It's mythologizing the dollar and making it into just a credit concept that's all kept in a computer system, and that's where, you know, all your banking is. But the problem again is that if money is digital and no longer physical, then whoever can control the digital realm can control the money, which is very dangerous in my opinion. And that's what this concept of ESGs, which you may hear that term ESGs, has to do with your environmental, social, and governmental score. So, and it's very realistic. They really want to do this. They want to basically score you in those three categories. Economic, meaning like your credit rating. Social, meaning your social presence, like your social media presence. In other words, if they don't like what you're saying, your credit score goes down. If they think you have your hate speech, or if they think you're negative, anti whatever, they can lower your credit score, which means raising your interest rates. Same with governmental. That has to do with compliance to governmental rules. Things like masks. These are the things they've literally mentioned: masks, vaccines. If you fail to comply with governmental regulations, that can also affect not only a score, your ESG score, which can affect things like borrowing, but also your ability to access certain things through the government. And they've said flat out, if we don't like somebody's getting money from the government, say like WIC or any kind of, you know, welfare or anything like that, EBT, they've said that we're going to limit where you can use your EBT, which they already do, but also they can cut off your EBT. If you're using EBT money and they don't like it because you're buying too much of one thing, they can cut you off, including things like your ESG score.
They
So
already have ESG score in China.
yeah,
Everybody's already monitored.
yeah, it's entirely a communist concept. It's a people control concept, you know. So, and there are banks voluntarily moving toward digital currency. It makes sense because banks, number one, don't have to handle cash anymore. Bank robberies will basically be eliminated. Even things like muggings will be eliminated. No, there's no way to steal your money if it's entirely digital. they can monitor drug sales or arms sales, as big transfers of money, and at least until people figure out how to get past it. But with this massive changeover, they're going to be able to see those things real time and what you're spending your money on. So it's a little nerve-wracking. So, but I think to be expected. Like I've said in the past, there is a passage in the book of Revelation that talks about the false prophet specifically not allowing anybody to buy or sell without the mark. That's the 666 reference. So if you don't have the mark, you can't buy or sell. But until this came along, this concept of digital currency came along, there was no way that could ever happen. There was no way any one person could control worldwide money. There's no way anybody could stop or start your use of money unless it's digitally based. Then anybody can do it. Anybody in a position of power can get on your thing and say, no, you're not going to buy anything anymore. And it's first time in history, really, that it's been possible. Fairly scary. So, all right, a couple more things. War. I think we all know war is here, but Azerbaijan, which is a very small country, 2 countries immediately east of Turkey. So if you were to look at a map, I'll be backwards, but if Turkey was here, directly attached to Turkey is a country called Armenia. And on the other side of Armenia is a country called Azerbaijan. And I happen to follow this because I worked at an Armenian church for years, and I have many Armenian friends now as a result. But Armenia is a staunchly Christian nation. In fact, they make the claim that they are the first nation that was officially Christian in the world. In the year 300, I think it was, they declared themselves to be a Christian nation. And so they're very proud of that. But Turkey is a Muslim nation. And then Azerbaijan, on the other side of Armenia, is a Muslim nation directly in line with Turkey. So Armenia is sandwiched between Turkey and Azerbaijan, and the warfare is constant. They're constantly trying to take land from them. And if you don't know, by the way, I'm sure you probably have heard this, but there was a massive Holocaust against Armenians before the Jewish Holocaust. There was approximately 1.5 million Armenians in the land of Turkey who were systematically hunted down and killed just because they were Armenian throughout the land of Turkey, until things changed and World War I ended and the Brits came in and started to protect people. But before that, massive death of Armenians. And there aren't that many Armenians in the world. So it was a good chunk of their population. Somewhere around 15 or 20% of the world population of Armenians was murdered. And that caused them to come to actually, I'm digressing, I apologize. Actually, the first thing that happened is because of that Holocaust, they voluntarily entered into an agreement to become a USSR nation. So they put themselves under the auspices of the USSR in the 1918 or 19, directly after this Holocaust, and were an Armenian nation for 70 years until about 89 or 90. And when the USSR broke up and they became free again. So they volunteered to go under so that they could get the protection of the Russian government against the Turks. Interesting history, but they are being, if you could look at a map, maybe if you're interested, go look at a map of Armenia and Azerbaijan, because it is really weird. When the breakup occurred, you can see the land of Armenia, and then you can see the land of Azerbaijan, but inside the land of Azerbaijan, there are parts of the land of Armenia that are surrounded. They're little tiny parts too. I'm talking like, the size of the city of Salinas, but it's technically an Armenian part of Armenia, completely within the land of Azerbaijan, and vice versa, by the way. There are Azerbaijani parts in the middle of Armenia. So this war is trying to take those parts and make them part of Azerbaijan. And basically means killing Armenians off. So all of my Armenian friends are posting on Facebook about this war now and stuff. But it does potentially allow for a second war in Europe because Armenia is not a NATO country, but is closely aligned with other NATO countries, and who would definitely step in to help them. So the growing fears of a European war are right at the doorstep. If you ask me honestly, I think we're already in World War III. I think we the U.S. are currently involved in World War III because of Russia and Ukraine. But that's a big topic. Anyway, coming war is another one. Russia developed a massive long-range nuke, and it's been nicknamed Satan the Second. There is a Satan the First, but it's the biggest long-range nuke in the history of the world. And I don't remember the size, but it's a massive payload in this thing, and like 20 times bigger than the biggest one in the world. I mean, it is huge. So they've developed it and are flaunting it to the world that they have this giant, nuclear missile, basically. So a little scary over there right now. A couple more. AI is getting involved in helping women end their pregnancies. You'd have to read this article. I'd have to send it to you, but it's just a chat bot thing about helping women to find ways to end pregnancies, Jewish persecution. U.S. has held several rallies, so has France, anti-Semitic rallies, largely by these neo-Nazi types. So anti-Semitism is growing in the world for no reason at all. Honestly, there is no reason for the hatred, no valid reason of any kind. So a couple more then. And then this you'll see, this is interesting, but you'll see a lot of growth in the kingdom of God too. Huge breakouts of mega baptisms and revivals. Austin had a revival. There was that one in Kentucky, I think it was about 6 months ago. But there's one in Austin. There's one in Louisiana. This North Carolina church baptized 300 people in one day. There's another one. More than 300 public schools nationwide will learn from the Bible. This is a new initiative by an academy called LifeWise Academy, putting Bible classes into public schools because of recent changes in law from the Supreme Court. So the kingdom of God is pushing back, is what I'm saying, which is very good news, right? So anyway, I spent a long time on that, but there's a lot going on in the world prophecy-wise right now. This clash of worlds that is going on, Okay. And then let me go a little bit of review because I think I kind of botched it last week trying to explain some things. So I wanted to explain these to make sure we're on the same page. And I'll do this kind of fast. I know I already talk fast. This is going to be even faster. So, but I'll stop for questions. All right. So a little bit of review. We asked this question. I think this is important enough to reiterate. Is the Antichrist Roman? And I asked that because this is by far the prevailing belief in the Christian church, is this concept of a revived Roman Empire. It's usually the terminology. And it's the result of in my opinion, misunderstandings, but interpretations of scripture that I think are misinterpreted, in my opinion. We're going to go over one briefly in just a second, but the prevailing thought is that the Antichrist must be Roman because of the way he's described. The city on 7 hills, which is Rome, is for millennia been known as the city of 7 hills. But the key with regard to that one is that Rome is one of about 20 cities on 7 hills. One of them, by the way, is Jerusalem. One is Istanbul. There's one in America known as the city of 7 hills. Excuse me. All right. But that has just been extrapolated out to mean, Antichrist must be Roman. I'll give you a couple examples of why. Largely this verse in Daniel, which talks about the people of the ruler to come, or the ruler who will come, will destroy the city and the sanctuary. This is out of Daniel, the prophecy of 70 weeks. Okay. People have always looked at that and said, well, the people of the ruler to come who destroys the city and the sanctuary around the time of Christ, clearly that's Rome, because it was the Romans who were in charge at that point, right? And so that's just been, in my opinion, it's trying to think of the good word. I can't get words out tonight, but it's just not thought through well enough. It's too simple. It's the low-hanging fruit interpretation. You have to go a little deeper, and I think people have failed to do that. So let me give you an example. So the people of the ruler who will come will destroy the city. And that was the Roman Empire that destroyed the city. But the wording is very interesting. The people of the ruler who will come. Interesting language. The ones who destroyed the city, if you remember from last week, was the 10th Roman Legion, also known as the 10th Legion Fretensis. And they were the legion that was in charge of that area, who was brought in to destroy the temple. So from that, everybody says, well, since it's a Roman legion, it must be the Romans. But here's what has to be considered. The Roman legions were always derived out of locals. So largely because of language barriers and cultural barriers. So the Romans they didn't bring people from Rome over to be legionnaires or soldiers because their Roman citizens are too valuable to them. They took people, conscripted locals, told them, if you do X number of years in the military, we'll set you up with a little bit of money and a piece of land, and so they would conscript. And we know from records that the 10th Legion was made up of Arabs, Syrians, Eastern Turks, which is that land of Armenia and Azerbaijan, and Northern peoples, which is people like where Ukraine or Russia might be now, north of the Black Sea. Those are the people that made up the 10th Legion. So if you're going to talk about the people of the prince to come, this is a viable interpretation. Arabs, Syrians, Turks, and Northern people, right? I think it is more likely that that's what Daniel's saying. He's talking about a nationality or a race of people rather than the governmental or political group of people. Okay. Another piece of evidence we looked at was the passage regarding Daniel's statues and beasts, which are interpretations of future kingdoms. And there was always that last beast or that last part of the statue that represented something far in the future, So Daniel very clearly says that these kingdoms, the kingdom that's going to come, in multiple places, he says, will crush and break the other kingdoms, meaning the kingdoms before it. Okay. So whatever this kingdom is, it's going to crush and break the other kingdoms. So we asked, and here's some verses for you right there, by the way. This is Daniel 2:40. Fourth kingdom, strong as iron. Iron smashes everything. As iron breaks things to pieces, so that kingdom will crush and break all of the others. Or Daniel 7, the fourth beast, a fourth kingdom that will appear on earth. It will be different from the other kingdoms and will devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. Okay. So whatever the case is, this is twice described as a crushing kingdom. So we asked ourselves, is the Roman Empire a crushing and devouring kingdom? And the answer, in my opinion, is no. They didn't crush kingdoms. They definitely won wars. But crushing the kingdom has to do with eliminating from the face of the earth the kingdom, right? And the Roman Empire didn't really do that. They were known for putting roads in to connect their kingdoms together. They were known for developing infrastructure, for building large-scale buildings. They were also known for allowing locals to maintain aspects of their culture. So they were not forced to worship Roman deities, at least not at the beginning. Later on they were. But for the long period of time, they were allowed to continue their worship practices, their forms of religion, all those kind of things. They were not subjugated that way. They were just simply governed. So the Romans would just come in and govern them using legions of people to put fear in them. And, frankly, torture and crucifixion methods that scared everybody. But they were not a crushing empire. They were also not a devouring empire, meaning like just, eating them to pieces. All right. In fact, one of the things to remember, I'll show you off the map, is that the Roman Empire couldn't be said to devour the other kingdoms, because here's the Roman Empire in green right here. All these others are the other kingdoms. The Roman Empire never made it past the Euphrates River, which is right about this range. Comes from about this part of Turkey, where my arrow is, and goes down to the Persian Gulf right down this range. In fact, that's it. You can see those are the lakes on the Euphrates River. They never made it past that. So you can't say that they devoured the other kingdoms, because this massive area is all the other kingdoms, including the fact that Rome really only covered this much of the other kingdoms right here. That's it. Just this little part of Egypt and part of Israel and part of Western Turkey, right? And then maybe, obviously they controlled Greece for a while. So they were not a devouring kingdom. Therefore, I don't think they're a good candidate, right? And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. I think there's a better candidate. So we started on this part B, the case for an Islamic Antichrist, which is page 84. And we started in on describing that, right? We looked initially at this book, this passage from Revelation. This is John who's getting a vision, right? And this is what's stated about the vision regarding this future kingdom that was coming. John says, well, this person speaking to John says, this calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 hills on which the woman sits. That's what makes people think it's Rome. Okay. Verse 10, there are also 7 kings. Okay. 5 have fallen. 1 is, the other has not yet come. But when he does come, he must remain for only a little while. So I highlighted that part because I want to key in on it. The beast who once was and now is not is an 8th king. He belongs to the 7 and is going to his destruction. We can tell from that because right after this is the destruction of Antichrist. Okay. So this Antichrist is going to replace or belong to the 7 kingdoms he's mentioned before, made up of 5 which are in the past, 1 that currently is, and another that has not yet come. So that's 7, right? So this 8th king, the Antichrist, comes from this 7. So let's look at that 7 real quick. Those 5 which have fallen would be the Egyptian, Assyrian, Medo-Persian, Neo-Babylonian. Neo-Babylonian was the one where like Daniel and they were taken into Babylon. Right, and the Greek empires. Let me go back and show you real quick. So you can see them on this map. The Assyrian is this red one right here. Wasn't huge. Kind of see it right there. Part of Egypt, down into the Valley of Egypt and just over to about Iraq right there. And then Babylonian is this dark kind of bluish green. And it was about the same area right there, a little bit less actually. Medo-Persian was considerably bigger, all the way over even into India. This is India down here. India came to about here. And the Medo-Persian, this is largely Persia, which is now modern day Iran, right? So Medo-Persian was made up of the Medes, which was this group of people, and the Persians, which was this group of people. And together they gathered all this land, including northern Egypt, right? The Greek, very close to the Medo-Persian, basically the same distance right here. And then, like I said, the Roman didn't get anywhere near where the Greeks got. So those are the ones that it's going to be part of, okay? Those are these, at least part of those are these, right? So that's the ones that have fallen. And then there's the one that is, and that's the kingdom that exists while John is writing. That kingdom would clearly be Rome. He's writing about 90 to 95 AD. Rome lasted until the 400s AD and started about 50 BC. So Rome was in its height right now in John's writing. Okay. So that's the one that is, and the one that will come is going to come later, and that's the one we're going to be discussing. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. I eliminated several. Like, for instance, we asked the question, how many major kingdoms came after Rome? Because we're trying to figure out what's the one that will come. Well, the Byzantine one did. We talked about this. Basically, that was just Rome again, but different leadership. The Ottoman Empire started about 600. The British Empire started about 1700, 1650, right? Communism, I would include as a massive, China and Russia. I call it communism because it's a similar worldview, right? But we eliminated those last time. And you'd have to go back to last week to say why we eliminated them. But we were stuck with this Ottoman Empire, which we couldn't eliminate. So that's what we're going to start with tonight, right? So we're going to look at the Ottoman Empire. We started looking at it. The first objection that we started on last week was the Ottoman Empire no longer exists, which is true. Ottoman Empire ended about 1921, 22, thereabouts. Actually, officially about March of 24. But the process started in the 21, 22 range, was finalized about 100 years ago this month, actually, or next month. I think it was October of 1923, right? And then took effect in early 1924. So it's been dead for almost exactly 100 years, right? Yeah, Tammy.
On page 85, right after you listed the Byzantine, Ottoman, British, and communism, where it says verse 11, who does the 8th king belong to? What is that referring to?
Let me go back. Oh, I don't think we've gotten there yet. Have we?
Well, if you've
Oh,
gone,
okay. Yeah, we did. I skipped that. Yeah, I apologize. I know what you're talking about. Right here, this section right here, I just forgot to stop. So we'd said last week, and when we were looking at this, I probably skipped these two. The 8th king belongs to the first. Remember this verse right here? 5 have fallen, one is, the other has not yet. The beast belongs to the 7, all right? So the beast, which is this final kingdom, this 8th kingdom, belongs to the ones we already know about: Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persia, and Greece, and we would add Rome. We would add Rome to that. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5. Let me look here. 5. Okay, that's 5. 1 that's Rome. So I may be skipping one here. 1, 2. So this 8th is going to belong to 5. These, I don't know why I said I'm missing one somewhere. Let's see this. Oh, the 7th is a coming kingdom. That's why it's not in here. So sorry, let me fix it. The 8th kingdom belongs to those first 5 plus Rome. We know that so far. Whatever the 8th kingdom is, it belongs to Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persia, Greece, and then Rome as well. Okay. So there's a 7th kingdom, which is kind of the one we're looking at. Who is this 7th kingdom? And the 8th king or kingdom comes from the 7th kingdom. So we're trying to find out who is the 7th kingdom. And this 8th king is the Antichrist, and he comes out of that 7th kingdom. Okay. Is that making sense?
yes.
I probably need to reword all
So
this.
the 8th king is called Antichrist.
Yes, the 8th king is the Antichrist. We know that from here. The beast who once was and now is not is the 8th king. He belongs to the 7 and is going to his destruction. The 7th kingdom is the one, let's see, 5 have fallen, one is, that's 6. The other has not yet come. The 7th kingdom at the time of his writing had not yet come. But the 8th king, the 8th, is going to come out of all of these right? Including that seventh kingdom. So what we're doing today is figuring out who is the seventh kingdom, because we're trying to figure out who is the Antichrist and where does he come from. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'll have to reword that so I'll make it clearer the next time I do the class, because it is a little convoluted. But
Well, it also says what kingdoms are these today. So is that like
yeah,
Turkey and all that?
I might have eliminated that. Yeah, some of these are, let's do that. Actually, I think I probably just forgot a slide or accidentally eliminated a slide. Let's talk about that. Egypt is clear. Okay, Egypt is Egypt. Assyria, let me go to the map. Assyria, let me get, if I, so I can find a better map. Hold on. This is a little less crowded. Let me go to this one. Okay, so if I can make some marks on here, I wish I had a better map that had. Okay, so here's a world map. I'm going to just point to some areas and maybe make some circles if I can. Let's get a shape here. I can. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to put some shapes on here. Make it so you can actually see. Oops. Okay, no. And I'll give it a red border so you can follow my logic here. Okay, there. So I'm going to show you who these are, okay? This, I think you probably know this is Italy right here. This is Greece, modern day Greece. This region is Turkey, okay? That's Turkey. I'm just telling you where things are right now. So we're not into that answer to that question yet. There, that was Turkey right there. That's what we were just talking about. Armenia, right there. Azerbaijan, right there. And then above that is Georgia, the country of Georgia. This is Ukraine, right over here, right there. So just to orient you, okay, this is the Black Sea, right here in blue. This is the Caspian Sea, okay. So, sorry, I grabbed the right thing. There we go. So this is Turkey, right about there, okay. Assyria, southern Turkey. Right now, move this so you orient it. Do you see this outline that I'm making right here? That's modern day Syria. Okay, that's the country of Syria right there. That's the country of Jordan right there. Syria was what is currently modern day Syria, all the way stretching eastward into northern Iraq, which is right about here, and northern Iran, which is right about here. So it was a big country kind of making this sort of outline right there. Now, today, Assyria is Syria. Okay. Oops, doing that. So Assyria of old is limited to the modern country of Syria today. All right, let me go back. Make sure I know where I'm at. There we go. Okay, Babylon. I got to find the map I was on. Here we go. Babylon was, gosh darn it. Babylon was probably, this is the city of Babylon right here, right about there, right about where my circle, that's where the city of Babylon was. The nation or the empire of Babylon was probably around here at its height, right around there. Okay. So let me actually do something. Make a better map. Okay, here's Turkey. Here's Egypt. Right there. You can see the modern outline, but I'll make it slightly bigger. This is Egypt, is sort of right there. Modern Syria is right about there. Okay, let's keep going. Let me go back to my list here. Persia and Greece. Let's find those. Okay. There's Greece. Right about there. Persia. Probably bigger. I'm not getting these exactly right, but they're pretty close. That's Persia during its empire. It was, actually, it's bigger than that. Probably about Gosh darn it. There we go. Persia was probably closer to that. Very large country in its day. Greece, I already said. And then Rome was probably, as I showed you on that other map, way over here, about like this. And then obviously up into Europe and stuff like that. So that's Rome, Greece, Turkey, Syria, Babylon, Persia, Egypt. Okay. So what he's saying is that these, what I have here, 1, 2, 3, Turkey isn't mentioned, so I'm going to eliminate them just real quick. So the 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6, I'm missing one, aren't I? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm missing one somewhere.
Well, it just
Sure.
says Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome, and the one that's not come yet.
Yes, you're right. That's where I keep getting mixed up. Dang it. I'm losing it, you guys. Okay.
It's a
So
rough week, Dave.
yeah, I know. Thank you. Thanks for understanding. So these right here would be the 6. Rome, which is the biggest circle, is the one that is. These others are the one that were or have fallen that he mentioned in Revelation. Rome is. The 7th has not yet come. We don't know where that is. That's a big question mark, right? And then the king, the 8th king, comes out of all of these, according to that passage. Comes out of the 7. So
So
somewhere.
what are the
in there-
kingdoms today? Egypt, Syria.
What
You
are
were
the what?
starting the kingdoms today. You have the
Oh,
ones-
what you mean? What are they today?
Yes,
Yeah, I would say Egypt is Egypt. Assyria
Syria,
is Syria,
right?
right? Persia would be Iran. Babylon would be Iraq. And Greece would be Greece, obviously. I'll go back over these in just a sec, okay? So the obvious ones, Greece is Greece, Egypt is Egypt,
Okay,
right? Not
that's
as
good.
obvious. Assyria is now Syria, which is there.
Right,
Persia is Iran, even partly into where Iraq is. Babylon would probably be what is Iraq these days.
right. Okay,
So
I
Iran,
think that's
Iraq.
where you were before you started drawing your map.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right. So hopefully I'm not confusing you too much, but those are the 6 that are mentioned. The 7th one is what we're trying to figure out, and we know that Antichrist comes from those 7. Okay, so
Rome is still Rome.
what?
Is Rome still Rome?
The Roman Empire was so big that you can't give it a single land.
So we don't know what kingdom Rome
Yeah,
is.
I mean, you could
today.
say it's Rome, you could say it's modern day Italy, but just, you got to remember how big and vast the Roman Empire was. If I could find a world map on here, I'd show you bigger. I mean, it was they went all the way to Britain. Britain, Spain, France, Portugal, Germany, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Romania, Hungary, all the nations you can't even see on here, including up into what is now Ukraine, parts of southern Russia, Greece, northern Africa, which would be Morocco, Libya, Egypt, northern Egypt, Tunisia. I mean, it's hard to pinpoint Rome because they were so vast,
Right.
Whereas this one's big, but it's only really 2 countries now. It's Iran and Iraq. It's easier to figure out. This was just huge. So you could say it's Rome, or you could say well, this is what people do. They call it the revived Roman Empire, and some people believe it's Europe because that's basically where Rome controlled. They controlled what is now Europe, at least the southern part of Europe. They never got as far north as Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland. They didn't get up that far, but they controlled everything else all the way over here. So someday I'll get a better world map to show you Rome at some point. Okay. So in our attempt to figure out who's the 7th kingdom, and I'm proposing it might be the Ottoman Empire, Okay. I want to start looking at some evidence for that. So now we are on page, looks like the bottom of page 85. Okay. So here's my point with this, and we don't have to belabor this, but the Turkish Empire is actively trying to rebuild and restart the Ottoman Empire. And I'm going to give you a little bit more evidence. Some of this we talked about already, right? Here's the cover of a Turkish magazine. It says get together for caliphate. When they say caliphate, they're talking about the Ottoman Empire. That's what a code word in Turkish means, is Ottoman Empire, because that's what they called the vastness of their kingdom, was the caliphate of Ottoman. Okay. Couple more things we talked about. Here's several Turkish TV series, and we all know TV is a propaganda machine. And any government trying to control its people controls television. We know that, you know. Turkish television shows. This is a show that leads up to the beginning of the Ottoman Empire, the official Ottoman Empire, which officially was probably about 1100, you know. But if you remember, once Muhammad came in about 600 and 650, the Muslims immediately began to take over territory. And when they finally had the vastness of their territory, they called it the Ottoman Empire, largely because of this other show about a man named Osman. And Osman is the one the Ottoman Empire is named after. So 2 TV shows. This is the prequel to this one, where if you were to watch them, you'd learn what they believe about their kingdom. You'll see the connection between the birth of the Ottoman Empire and the Crusades, which is largely where they came from. And then you'll see the life of Osman, who was the first real king of the Ottoman Empire in its birth. And then it grew. After Ottoman, it continued to grow. Or after Osman, I should say. Okay. So those are current TV shows. Here's a headline, probably a little older now, about Qatar celebrating Erdogan. Erdogan, pronunciation of this, is the president of Turkey. Okay. So Qatar celebrates Erdogan's electoral win. It's a victory for the Ottoman Empire, they say. Memory, by the way, is a Middle Eastern newspaper source that I follow. They print it in English and in Arabic and Farsi and some others, right? So they're saying it's a victory for the Ottoman Empire and for the Islamic orientation and the defeat of secularism, supported by the U.S. and the West. So in other words, Qatar is supported by the U.S. and the West. Okay, a couple more. This is Erdogan. That's the president of Turkey, right? He's saying we are a country larger than 780,000 square kilometers. That would be just this. He's saying we're larger than this. Its brothers and sisters in the region, which extend from the Balkans to Turkestan. Let me get to the map. Turkestan's way over here, and it was part of the Ottoman Empire. The Balkans are in this range, I believe. I can't remember, honestly. They might be here. But he's saying, no, I think actually the Balkans might be here in what is, Eastern Greece. Frankly, I'm forgetting. But he's saying we're farther than that. We're farther than Africa and the Middle East, which is this whole region right here, right? Let's see. It is not possible for Turkey to turn its back on Palestine, Somalia, Yemen, Palestine, Somalia down here, Yemen, which is, I think, here, right? Not possible to turn their back on those areas. Bosnia, Afghanistan, Pakistan, or Arakan. I don't know where Arakan is. Okay. Let me show you where those other ones are. Yemen, Bosnia, Afghanistan, Bosnia, up in this region. Okay. Afghanistan, right about here. Pakistan, well, actually, Afghanistan is above Pakistan. So Pakistan about here, Afghanistan about here. This is all the extent of the Ottoman Empire that he's referring to. He's saying, these are our lands. Okay. Another one down here. We cannot remain silent in the face of occupation of the lands of Azerbaijan, with which we share the principle one nation, two states. So again, Azerbaijan is right next to the Caspian Sea. The nation of Armenia is right in between, and then Turkey. So the Turkish president is saying, we are one state. These guys are in the way. That's what he's saying. Okay. All of these are former Ottoman lands, everything he just referred to. So he's saying that we are not just Turkey, we are all these lands. Okay. Again, here's a picture of the Ottoman Empire at its height, all the way up into the Stan areas. All the Stan countries are here, down here like that. Okay. A little bit about the Hijaz, which is the eastern border of Saudi Arabia. Very important to them. This is the Hijaz circled in red right here. Let me give you another picture of it. Why it's important is because the Hijaz is where Mecca and Medina are. Mecca is obviously, you know, Mecca, that's where every Muslim in the world is required to go to worship. It's the birthplace of Muhammad. This is the home city of Muhammad, where many of his writings were, right here, and where he grew up and married. So between these two places is where Muhammad lived. So this region called the Hijaz is extremely important for the Turks and for the Ottoman Empire. And again, here's another one. This is a screenshot of a Turkish TV show, right? Talking about this is what they believe is their divine empire in red. Circled is the Hijaz right there. Okay, so this is what Turkey is actively working towards. And by the way, don't underestimate Turkey, because even though they're a very small nation, they're extremely high military strength, largely because of the US. We give them lots of money because we store our nuclear weapons in northern Turkey. So they get paid. This is our weaponry against Russia. In case Russia ever attacks, we got missiles right here. But we pay them a fortune to do that. And they use that fortune to build up their military. So they're in the top 10 militaries in the world, believe it or not. They're definitely in the top 10 of Europe. So the huge military in Turkey. Okay. Another aspect of this, Turkey is placing troops, again, there's the Hijaz, in Somalia, which is down here. They're placing troops and armaments here, and they're befriending all of these people in these small nations, which would be Ethiopia, I believe that's Ethiopia, Sudan, Eritrea, Djibouti. They are forming troops on these lands, not Egypt. Egypt won't let them. All these areas Turkey's putting troops down here and building up infrastructure. We believe because they want to make an attack against the Hijaz and grab it. Right. Couple more. The Ottoman Empire then took up the lands of the other nations and is currently planning to revive. That's their active plan, right? So because of that, I believe the Ottoman is the best candidate for that seventh kingdom. Okay. And then remember that the eighth kingdom belongs to those seven. The eighth kingdom belongs to all of these, which is pretty well represented by the Ottoman Empire, which is at its height was here. Okay. So I hope you understand my case at this far. So a little bit more, one more aspect. And this is actually kind of key. We're on page 4. I know we're moving really fast, but
87.
yeah, we go. Bottom of 87, right? Here's the absolute key. These nations right here, all of which encompass the Ottoman Empire, are all Muslim nations. Every single one of these. The darkness of the country in this map particularly has to do with the fundamentalist nature, or how pervasive that Islam is in that country. But Israel, right about here, is completely surrounded by the Ottoman Empire, which is currently entirely Muslim, still Muslim, even though it's not a single empire. And now it's, by the way, it's down here. There's burgeoning empires in Greece and Italy, right? Up here in the southern parts of Russia, and all the Stan nations, which is Stan meaning like Kyrgyzstan, Turkmenistan, Turkestan, Pakistan, Afghanistan. All the Stan nations are this area right here, all Muslim. and all part of the former Ottoman Empire. So think about it. These nations, the former Ottoman Empire, are all still Muslim, fundamentalist, and the ones that are closest, actively pursuing the destruction of Israel and trying to reunite into a single empire again. Okay. That's what I'm getting at with this. So the best option for this eighth kingdom seems to be that we're looking for a Muslim empire. Right. I'm at the top of page 88 now. Okay. We're looking for a Muslim empire, in my opinion, and we have to allow for the fact that the Ottoman Empire was a Muslim empire. So if Ottoman Empire should revive into a single empire, that may not be one country, but it may be a conglomeration of multiple countries that join together and say, okay, we are now one empire, or in their language, we are one caliphate, which means we'll have one ruler over all of us. One person rules all of them, and all of them are surrounding Israel. So, right? Is that making sense? Okay.
A
Stop
little
me.
bit scary for Israel.
They are one of the gutsiest nations on earth. They're also very powerful army.
Yeah.
Israel, little tiny Israel. Israel's the size of New Jersey. Israel is also the 8th most powerful military on earth. They are incredibly powerful military, far more than the majority of these other countries, because they're just inept and poor. Israel's got a ton of money, very high technology, and with the exception of probably Turkey and maybe Egypt, they are probably the most powerful among all these, believe it or not. Now, combined together, they're not, but individually, they're more powerful. Right. So let me move on really to the top of 88 is what I'm calling piece of evidence number 2. Okay. So we said the Ottoman Empire is reborn. It's trying to reform. The Ottoman Empire is a crushing and devouring empire. Okay. So remembering back to section 4, what we just talked about, describing those kingdoms as crushing and destroying. Rome didn't do this, right? But the Muslim Empire is a crushing and destroying empire. These are examples. I'll give you 2 full pages of these. You don't have to write these down. You could screenshot it if you want. Boko Haram is a Muslim group in northern Africa, largely in Nigeria, carrying out massive killings of Christians. They burn churches and kill Christians weekly. I mean, probably thousands a year that they're murdering through Boko Haram. The destruction of Iraq during the Iraqi war, the way they destroyed, they destroyed Iraq because they didn't like the government system. And this was largely ISIS. Okay. ISIS, when they were at their power, was in the country of Syria, absolutely destroying everything, tearing everything to the ground, pulling down any old statues of gods, any buildings they found that might have been churches for other ancient Christian churches, torn to the ground completely. I wish I could show you video. I'll show you some screenshots, but video is hard to find on this, right? But then just on the Arabian Peninsula, which would be sort of this, oops, bad map, sort of this area right down here, the Arabian Peninsula. There are these kingdoms that the Turks and fundamentalist Muslims are actively tearing down. All of these, there's more names right here. African civilizations that are being shredded by Islam and largely through ISIS or burgeoning Islamic movements, that type of thing. Anatolia is Armenia. They're being punished basically because they're Christian. The ancient Nubian kingdoms are being shredded and torn down. The Cyrenaic kingdom, which is ancient Libya. So what happens is ISIS goes in. I'm saying ISIS, but it could be any strong fundamentalist Muslim group. Okay. And they go in and if they can take over a region, which they do because they're fairly strong, The first thing they'll do is completely tear down everything that isn't Muslim. They will shred everything. They'll tear down any church, any Jewish synagogue, any ancient places of worship that might be like archaeological places. They'll go in, they'll tear down modern stuff. They'll go into seminaries and burn every Christian seminary book. You know, they'll kill or imprison every Christian in the region. These are the ISIS type groups, right? Not memberships of the government of a country, but separatist groups that are fundamentalists. This is what they do. When fundamentalist Islam takes over, it absolutely crushes everything in its path. It like eliminates it, like you'd never know it was there. It's unbelievable. Here's some stuff. Erasing history, why Islamic State is blowing up ancient artifacts. I'm sorry. Here's a little bit quote out of that. It says they toppled priceless statues in the Mosul museum in northern Iraq. They used sledgehammers and power tools to deface giant winged bull statues in Nineveh and the outskirts of Mosul. At Nimrud, IS, which is Islamic State. Islamic State detonated explosives, turning the site into a giant mushroom cloud. They used assault rifles and pickaxes to destroy invaluable carvings at Hatra and Palmyra in Syria. They blew up a 2,000-year-old temple dedicated to the pagan god Baal, right? This is what they do. They go in, and this is a bigger version of that. Okay. Here's another one out of Northern Africa. Islam destroys our beloved continent. Here's a Wikipedia page dedicated to the destruction of cultural heritage by ISIL. ISIS, ISIL, and IS are all variants of the same term, right? I can't tell you what they mean because they're in different languages, but ISIS started in Syria and Northern Africa. When they grew, they became known as ISIL, which is the areas of ISIS plus areas in Jordan and Israel. Okay. And then when they became even larger and were in Africa, they just became IS, which is just Islamic State, basically. So they're actively trying to do this. This was fairly recently. Well, no, a couple years ago. They the Israelis found the altar of Joshua from the Old Testament, and they turned their back, and Palestinians came in and started completely eliminating the whole thing. They were gonna archaeologically examine the thing. Palestinians came in and said, "No, you're not," and they started to just shred it. They said, "Oh, we're using it for farmland," right? But they were basically destroying Joshua's altar because it was Judeo-Christian. Oops. So that's what they do. Okay, they are a destroying continent. Let's look a little bit, one more, and then we'll be done for the day. Maybe two more. Okay. As I've said, the kingdoms of Ezekiel 38, which we already talked about, are all Islamic kingdoms now, all of them. And that's out of section 5, if you wanted to go back, right? This is from that section 5. These are the nations listed from Ezekiel 38 as the ones that would eventually stand against Israel, okay? Gog from Magog, which is Turkey. By the way, this is the new spelling of Turkey right here. Meshech and Tubal, which is central Turkey. Persia, which is Iran, Iraq, and Syria. Cush, which is Sudan and Egypt. All these, Push, Libya. Gomer, also Turkey. Beth Togarmah, also Turkey, right? These are their names. These are the nations they represent. Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Sudan, Egypt, Libya, and Syria. What do these all have in common? All of them are Muslim nations. That's the nations we just talked about. They're all Muslim nations. See? So I think the case is very strong that what we're talking about with this seventh kingdom is either a revival of the Ottoman Empire, if that should happen, or some other kind of conglomeration of these nations that made up those others that we mentioned earlier out of Revelation.
Can you go back one slide, Dave, so I can just catch a couple of those?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Don't ask me to name all the nations. I know that's Tunisia. That's Algeria. No, that's Tunisia. That's Algeria. That's
One more slide back.
oh,
Thanks.
there you go.
I'm sorry. One more back.
Oh, I see where you're at. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, here. So I would fill in the modern name of them if I was you. So these out of, let me go to this one. These out of verse 2 are both Turkey. Okay. Verse 5 would be Iran, Iraq, Syria. So I'd fill in the blue into those empty spots. And then you may, let's see. No, I didn't include the map I just showed you in here, unfortunately.
So these are all Islamic nations.
Yep.
But are all of them from the Ottoman Empire?
Let me show you where, here's another map. I'll show you where the Ottoman Empire was. It didn't go much farther south than here, the northern part of North Africa. Let me see if I have a map of it. Somewhere on here, I have a good map of the Ottoman Empire at its height. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it. I mean, it may be too far back for me to find. But so if you can follow my outline, Northern Africa, okay, down the coast down here, which is Egypt, Ethiopia, Sudan, all these nations. So kind of the fringe of Northern and Eastern Africa. The western part of this Saudi Arabia, right? They weren't cohesive as a nation then. So it was just this western area right here. And then everything else you're looking at, including this dark green, okay, that was all Ottoman, the black and the dark green. And then I would say that it probably went, I would say maybe it reached up above this black right here where my cursor is. And then you'll see a little section of black. That's a Muslim country too, currently. Okay. Currently Muslim country. But it kind of went all the way over. They went all the way into the eastern portion of Spain before they started to shrink again. So they maintained control of a good chunk of Italy, Greece, all the way over into eastern Spain, all the way over this dark green, which is the Stan nations. These are all also Stan nations, Pakistan, Afghanistan. And then all this black, this Africa that's black here, those are fairly new. So those were not part of the Ottoman Empire. Okay.
Oh, I guess I was trying to answer the question on page 88. What do these countries all have in common? All are Islamic nations.
And
All
all
are
our former Ezekiel 38 nations.
Oh, I see.
Ezekiel chapter 38. All the nations that we talked about that Ezekiel says will invade are also within this that we just showed.
So
All
if
these
they
nations.
were all, if they were all part of the Ottoman, was the Ottoman Islamic? I mean, what was the religious part? Okay,
Ottoman
so
was an Islamic empire. Yes.
then how did tiny little Italy and Sicily and all that become all Catholic? I just don't understand how the religion changed.
Yeah, probably partly because they never gained a super strong foothold on Italy because it was let me give you a quick background. I'll try not to digress too far. So the Ottoman Empire, or the Islam before it was the Ottoman Empire, starts right down in this region with the Hejaz, right there, quickly begins to spread to North Africa into this area right here, continues to spread east into what was then Persia, right? And then west into North Africa. Then it starts to grow north and takes over Turkey. Then it continues to grow in this area later. by the time they get to most of what you're looking at, what had happened was they were starting to head west toward Europe, and then the European worlds woke up and they said, uh-oh, we better arm ourselves. So Spain armed itself. Britain, which is, you see the bottom of, actually this is Spain, I'm sorry. This is France. France armed themselves. Spain armed themselves. Britain is right here. They armed themselves. They started hearing rumors of about in the 1000 range when Islam had taken over Israel. The Muslims were starting to murder pilgrims to Jerusalem, right? So they were, since they controlled the land, they started actively pursuing and murdering anybody who made a pilgrimage, a Christian who made a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, which was common. You know, people still do that. So they started murdering them. And that's when Europe started the Crusades against them, basically. So the Crusades were a reaction to Muslim attacks against pilgrims trying to go to Jerusalem. And that's what started it. Now, Christians technically didn't win the Crusades. In the end, around 1175, after about 100 plus years, it was just sort of conceded to the Muslims, and the Europeans went back, strengthened their armies against any growth in this region, but didn't attempt to take over the Muslim world, because at that point the Muslim world was massive. In the 400 years or so it had been alive, they were massive, and they were very, very fierce fighters. So they were feared quite a bit. So we backed off, and that allowed the Ottoman Empire to grow all the way in spotty areas, never fully gaining control, but all the way through these lands over into France and into eastern Spain.
So what do you think gave the Islamic movement so much power, so fast, so vast, so strong? I mean, it looks like just a wildfire took over.
Yeah, it really was. Well, I mean, it's still very growing. It's the fastest growing religion on earth still. It's not as big as Christianity, but it's very, very close, and will overtake Christianity worldwide probably within about 10 years, maybe 20 years in number. It's largely because they appeal to something within humanity. I think they're extremely legalistic. So as the world falls apart and people are like yearning for constraints on behavior, they will accept a strong nation coming in and putting very, very harsh constraints on them. They'll accept it. People want it because it stops the violence and it stops the sin in their eyes. And, you know, because the legalism within Islam is very strong, stronger than Christianity, much stronger. That's why you can't, you know, it's not just things like wearing the facial coverings for women. It's laws about sexuality. It's laws about theft, all that kind of stuff. They're just a very, very firm and strong legal system. And so the more the world goes insane, the more they invite Islam in, right? It's one part. Another part of it is that if you're in a country taken over by a fundamentalist Islam, you don't have any choice. You either convert or you die. So when they go into places like, they just retook Afghanistan when we came out, right? They were fairly strong there, but they retook Afghanistan when we withdrew, and they basically just started murdering anybody who wouldn't adhere to stringent fundamentalist Islam. They said you can either convert or you die right now. Sometimes they let them pay a tax. You either convert or you pay this heavy tax, or you die. That's it. So all of those together make for the quick growth of Islam. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's just a
Yeah.
bit scary.
Yeah, very scary. Yeah. Okay. So this is the answer to that question that you had. They're all, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong answer. They're all former Ottoman Empire nations, because then the next thing we did was talk about how they're also Ezekiel chapter 37 nations, right? So here's the key at the top of page 89, and that's that the things that Ezekiel 38 talks about appear to be happening right now, right? The nations that it talks about, here's represented part of them, but the nations of Turkey, maybe I should go to this one, Turkey, these nations right here that are mentioned in Ezekiel 38, Libya is one, these nations down here, these nations over here are mentioned. Those are all Ezekiel 38 nations. They're all Muslim and they're all Ottoman Empire nations. Okay. Hopefully that made sense. I should figure out a better way to say that. I'll do a quick note and then we'll try to get, can I go a couple minutes long? Is that okay?
Yes, that's
Sure.
fine.
Okay. Not too long. I just want to get through that, the one that says evidence for, and show you that real quick. That'll be fast. Okay. Interesting side note. As we talked about earlier, when Ezekiel talks about Sheba, Dedan, and Tarshish will apparently oppose the invasion, or at the very least not stand up against an invasion. They seem to be standing back and saying we're not involved, right? That's from section 5. Those are the Saudi nations and either Spain or Britain, because Tarshish could be Spain or it could be Britain, right? Those are all the nations that are currently on track to declaring friendship unions with Israel. So, sort of another interesting fulfillment of Ezekiel chapter 38, that the nations it mentions that don't invade are currently nations that are creating peace proposals with Israel. So Ezekiel 38 again is just getting fulfilled right before our eyes. It's happening right now. All right. So so we can skip this real quick. So let me get to this. This is evidence number 4. And this is just real quick. Why the Antichrist will probably be from an Islamic nation or a Muslim person is that Muslims would not accept a non-Muslim savior. Here's what I'm getting at with that. Okay. Muslims make up about 25% of the world's population, actually a little less, probably 22%. About 1.6 to 1.7 billion adherents. That's we're at about 8 billion people worldwide, so it's like 23, 24%. Okay. That's A. B. Islam has a very, very rigorous and very specific end time set of prophecies of their own. We're going to study those actually. Okay. In fact, that's the next section we do. So in other words, the Jews have kind of an end times prophecy, not a whole lot actually. Christians have a very strong end times prophecy because of the book of Revelation and other passages. But Islam also has a very strong and specific set of prophecies that they are looking for to be fulfilled. And we're going to look at those next, all right? So concluding that, what I think is that if the Antichrist should arise and he is not a Muslim, then it's very low chance that any Muslim will accept him. And Tracy's here.
Hi.
Because, and I think that's bad, because 25% of the world is automatically eliminated unless this Antichrist person is a Muslim. Does that make sense? So again, it's a little speculative on my part, but I would say that at least a small case could be made for an Islamic or a Muslim Antichrist because of this fact right here. And so the next thing we'll do is this right here, a primer on Islamic eschatology. Okay. So what we're going to do then is we're going to look at what Muslims believe about their coming Messiah and their end times. And you're going to notice some very interesting stuff about that. Okay. So that was a lot. Give me your questions. or if I need to go back or whatever.
Thank you, fire hose.
Yeah, sorry. Tracy says I fire hosed you.
You totally did. Rough day, and you just drowned in me. Page 87.
Yeah.
I didn't quite get the answer to the Hajjah is the area of blank, which includes blank and blank.
Yeah, let me go back. That would be the area of, I'll just tell you without finding the slide. Hejaz is the area of Western Saudi Arabia. Okay, I'll find a map and I'll show you again. Here we go. Okay, here's Saudi Arabia right here that I'm circling just south of Israel. The Hejaz is this area just right here, the western part of Saudi Arabia. And that's where Mecca and Medina were. Okay.
So when it says which includes, what is
And
it?
Tuba.
Yes. Which includes Mecca and Medina, and let me see what else I said in that one. I gotta find where that was. Let's see.
I don't think it was here.
Yeah, it was.
Under evidence 1.
I thought it was Tabuk right there. You just passed it.
Yeah.
Oh, go back the other way.
I think you need to go up.
There. Medina, Mecca, and Tabuk.
Yeah, but there was more. There was a slide that actually.
Oh,
Let me find it. Give me just a sec.
Okay, hold on,
that might
Dave.
be it right there.
Don't move, Dave.
Yeah, I think they had more, but if you want to just write that down, I'm sure that's.
Don't move all muscle.
Not
moving.
just kidding.
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably all I was gonna do. I may have just missed it. Includes Mecca and Medina, but it could also be said to include parts of Yemen, which is the very southernmost part. You just got to remember that those areas were not populated back then. So they were moot back then because there was really nobody living there. But I know I left a blank there. Let me just find. Have you got this down?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know I had more in there on that. I just got to find it. No, is that one? Okay. I may have actually lost yeah, I probably lost a slide. So, because there was a little bit more about what that land is, but you can see where it is. You see the Hijaz took up these key areas that we talked about. It actually was called the Kingdom of Hijaz for the very end of the Ottoman Empire, basically for like 10 years. And then it ended. So another thing to say before we go is that if you want to watch and you're interested, everything we've been talking about the Ottoman Empire, keep in mind that they want to restart the Ottoman Empire, and we're coming up very quickly to the 100th anniversary of the end of the Ottoman Empire. So between October and about March is going to be celebrations in Turkey. They might make a move. There might be a political move to try and unite those areas. There might be a war started, or there could be nothing. Honestly, I just don't know. But they've been talking for the last 10 years about something's coming at the 100-year anniversary of the fall of the Ottoman Empire. All right. So keep your eye on the news. You might see some interesting things coming out of Turkey with regard to the Ottoman Empire.
Where would we get the best news? Because I mean, we're not going to find that on KION.
Yeah. Let me write you some names down. Hold on. I got to find where I ended. So never mind. I know. Yeah. Yeah. How do you know that? Man, you freaking smart person.
89.
I'm going to write some names down. Memory. Yeah, it's all blue. I got to turn it into white so you can see it.
He has hidden messages on his slide.
Yeah. Stuff only I can read, like a dog whistle. Okay. Memory. Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera News. Do any of you know what Telegram is, or Telegraph? It's a messaging Telegram messaging app.
Nope.
Yeah, you ever heard of it? I'm going to write this down.
Heard of it.
Telegram. Look for Amir Sarfati.
I've heard him.
Yeah.
He's good.
Look for Amir Sarfati's news feed. Oops. He does. In fact, Amir Sarfati is a incredible source of information
He is.
on the Middle East. Let me give you another couple. Let's see here. Eric Stackleback. I'm going to probably spell this wrong. I think he's on either TBN or CNN. Look for Eric Stackleback. He's also on YouTube. He does updates on the Middle East, active once a week updates on the Middle East. So Memory and Al Jazeera are secular Muslim news sources, meaning they're not far right, they're not fundamentalists, but they are Muslim, and they're pretty good. They don't lie. I mean, they tell you pretty up-to-date stuff. Telegram, Amir Sarfati, really good. If you can find him, you can probably find Amir Sarfati updates just anywhere online. Maybe he has a website, but look up Amir Sarfati's name. The only thing I'd say is Amir Sarfati is a pretty staunch pre-trib supporter, which I think he's clearly wrong on, but I don't know why he stands there with it, but he does. Eric Stackleback, another good guy. He has more like archaeological updates or recent news on the nation of Israel, whereas Sarfati is focused on prophecy. All right. But any of these are good sources if you want to write them down. I'm going to write one more down, but I'm going to caution you. I got to make sure I get the name right. Hold on. Find it. It's a very overly conservative / fundamentalist Christian site, and just don't buy everything you read there. It's endtimesheadlines.org. Erase this stuff so it makes sense. Okay. Just read this one with a grain of salt, okay? Because he's kind of sensationalist, and he does a lot of stuff like, he'll do a lot of stuff like, oh my gosh, there's an eclipse that occurred yesterday, therefore God is coming. Or, oh my gosh, there was a hurricane and therefore God is coming. Those are all really bad ways to do eschatology. So stick with just what the Bible says.
Who is the guy who does End Times Headlines?
I don't remember. He also has a YouTube page. I don't remember his name. It is one guy or one small organization, but I don't remember his name. He's not like heretical, but he's probably pre-trib, and he's a little too sensationalist. But you can glean out some stuff.
I think I've heard some stuff from him before.
Yeah.
So I can't remember his name.
You can find some stuff there that is valid, you know. And if you have questions, just email me. All right.
Sounds good.
Yep,
That
please,
good?
sir.
Sorry I fire hosed you, but you got to be used to it by now.
Does it make it less overwhelming?
No, yeah, no. Yeah. Okay. Any
All
last
right,
questions?
Dave, thank you.
Well, you put Sid to sleep.
Where's America? There she is. Where's Said Dog, America?
Right behind her.
There he is.
Said dog.
Said Doggy.
He's out.
You.
He's out.
Aw.
Did America tell you what kind of car she got?
No, she just told me she had a car. She didn't tell me what it was.
She got an Acura.
Oh,
Dang, all rich and stuff.
Right. Oh,
All right. Good night, Dave. You stop
Good night.
that.
Thanks,
Night,
Tammy.
Tammy.
Thanks, Nancy.
Bye, guys. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Soon.
Hey, so America, David said he's gonna be there Saturday.
Oh, is he? Okay. He's
Yeah.
here right now.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's in his office with Chris.
Oh,
Oh,
cool.
That
oh.
that thing.
Doing the
supposed to be-
trauma thing. Oh, good. Okay.
So he
Yeah.
did do it?
Well, yeah. So he has a guy. There weren't any gals to do it because like America's doing this class, so she couldn't do the
Oh.
trauma thing.
Tell him sorry.
And yeah,
Sorry, I grabbed his
for this class.
yeah,
Yeah. She's
Oh
like, I
my
don't want to talk about my past.
yeah.
I know, right?
Trauma?
Over it.
I mean, it's good for you, but yeah, I get
Yeah.
what you're saying.
It's not. I don't think it's that severe, but I mean, I don't know. Whatever.
I
I think I'll
it's
be
always
right.
good to talk about. Everybody kind of has something, you know.
Yeah, but this is better. This is interesting. You know,
Good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
it was boring, but no, it's got there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
You know, and there'll be other opportunities and other ways to talk
Yeah,
about.
he said something about in the fall. Maybe they'll have another one.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. All right.
There you go.
Oh, that's good.
America's like, so Dave, do you have another class coming up that I can take instead?
I know. Is there a sequel to this? Part 2?
I should create a sequel. That'd be a good idea.
Definitely.
Yep. Cool.
Guys.
All right.
Well,
Thanks, America.
Bye. See you. What, Tuesday?
Saturday.
Oh, Saturday. Saturday. You're gonna be here too, right?
All right.
Okay. All right then.
All right. See you later.
guys.
Saturday.
Bye.
Bye.